Hi, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Allison, and I will be your host on this cavalcade of wonders. So today we're going to cover this woman dated only far-right men for a year. They were so insecure. I have my doubts, but we shall find out if this is accurate. Now, just before we begin, once again, if you like this content, you like to support the show, you can go to feedthebadger.com/support. And if you'd like to send me a message at any time while the show is going, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Please tell me if my sound is good. I have the void cat proof mic arrangement, but sometimes it's a little bit distant. And I guess I'm going to have to ask you, Brian, to make sure that the sound on the good Lord, I put you in the other room. How did you get out of that? I'm going to have to ask you, Brian, to make sure that the sound on the video is clear. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Oops.
Oh, hold on a second. It's there's no.
It's not working? Oh boy.
There's no audio. I just gotta like.
I wonder if there was a thing. Can they hear you while we do this, or?
They can hear me. Yes.
Okay, good. So at least they know that something is going on.
Yeah.
Did I not share it? I'm pretty sure I did share it. Let me just double check here.
Audio? Are you sharing the audio?
To share audio, share tab instead. Okay. All right. Let's redo this. So apparently, for whatever reason, you cannot share audio in a window. You can only share it in a tab. That's very peculiarly specific. Just give me a second here. All right. How's that? Oh, no.
CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan got in the cage with
that works.
All right, where we go?
Jake Shields
to
explore the Manosphere and why exactly it's so popular.
All right, so let's just begin. Let's begin that again because, you know, we've had some shenanigans already.
CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan got in the cage with former UFC star turned podcaster Jake Shields to explore the Manosphere and why exactly it's so popular.
They speak liberal, they have liberal friends, and then they go online and they are a white supremacist.
This is Vera Papasova. She's
what? What the? That was quite the. Is the Manosphere really known for being white supremacist in particular? Like, they really went right out the gate. There was absolutely no fluffing with this one, just right up the ass in the first 30 seconds. Okay. It was good. This is going to be fun. Very much fun. Oh, 6 minutes, huh? I don't know how they're going to top that one. Right out the gate. Oh, yeah, they're not faith. Which is the thing that they always go for. I mean, I remember 7 years ago when, I think it was CNN, presented a bunch of hippies from the Church of Weed, Indian from the subcontinent, like immigrant who was a congressional candidate, and a bunch of anarchists as Nazis. And they got like a crowd of hundreds of thousands to descend on this gazebo with 12 people. And I did a video on it called Where Are the Nazis in Boston? Or Where are the Boston Nazis? As opposed to the Illinois Nazis. And it was just astounding. But I guess we're just going to go right to the most extreme accusation. The most extreme accusation right off the bat. We're not going to just massage in with like a little bit of misogyny or, I don't know, colorism. No, right off the bat, it's white supremacy, which, you know, I'm going to ask you a question, Brian. Is Tommy Sotomayor considered part of the Manosphere? Or I guess not.
I would imagine, yes.
Hmm.
If it's
okay, well,
convenient, he is. Let's put it that way.
I see. So it's always a matter of political convenience, of course. Here, just a sec. I'm going to just adjust my camera a little bit. so I'm not quite so down in the bottom of the frame. All right, so let's continue. Let's continue. I don't know where the heck we're going to go from here. I mean, we've already equated the Manosphere to the Nazis. This is actually starting to get a little interesting. Like, can they go anywhere from here? All right, let's see.
Spent the last year dating far-right men in New York City for a story for Cosmopolitan magazine.
In New York City. Are there a lot of them in New York City? I wonder if she was just dating like finance bros and they just happen to have slightly libertarian beliefs because they're finance bros and now that's far right. Hell, actually, you know what? Honestly, she just has to stop it, man. Men are part of the Manosphere because they're men and they identify with men. Those men who don't identify with men, they're not part of the Manosphere. So she was dating men. She's having her report on dating men.
They're the most insecure men I've ever sat down with. It was really difficult to have some of these dates because they were so insecure, because they don't really know who they are.
I have my doubts here. I have some serious doubts. Also, why are you using vocal fry? Like, and she managed to date all of them, huh? You know, I find this interesting because it isn't. I forget what they were, but a while back, the far right would send in honey traps to get these. I guess they were all part of the graft, the huge amount of graft that we're now finding was in the deep state, Washington D.C., and they would get them to reveal like these secrets about corporate malfeasance, corporate and government malfeasance. But I guess this woman's really hard hitting. She's found out that far right men are insecure, which incidentally is just an opinion because she doesn't have she doesn't have one-to-one knowledge of their actual mindset. She's just assuming based on factors. I wonder if she'll even explain the factors. Maybe this all amounts to her feeling. And her feeling is now a fact about the far right. Okay, let's find out.
And they don't know how to figure that out.
She said,
what? They don't know who they are and they don't know how to figure that out. Let me expand this. I want to see if that's... No, yeah, I didn't have it expanded. Sorry, guys. They didn't know who they are and they were trying to figure that out. What narrative is this convenient to? I mean, I guess the left knows what men are. Really? Like, I mean, do you have any trait that men have that's positive? Like, on the left, do you offer any kind of recognition that men have any kind of unique value proposition whatsoever? Of course you don't, because if you did, it would be sexist. It would be a bio-truth. I mean, it's okay to say that women are great about or have a unique value that men don't, but you can't say that about men. Suddenly it becomes a bio-truth if you're on the left. So they're saying that men on the right are insecure. Why? I'm guessing we're never going to get an answer.
the men she dated got all their news and information from the so-called Manosphere.
I have a skepticism. And the reason why I have a skepticism is, what definition of manosphere are they using? Are they just using everything that doesn't agree with the left? Of course they are.
They did not listen to anything else. They're only...
Okay. And what you're doing here is you're essentially saying there's nothing else to listen to but your side. You're saying that their side is illegitimate. This is the implication here. So if you're saying that they're wrong for not listening to the other side, what about you? I guess your side is the side of truth and correctness, of course.
listening to independent media, and they're only listening to...
Oh, independent media. Isn't that also far right, depending? What did they define independent media for me, please? Of course, I never will.
men talking to men.
The Manosphere is made up of...
There we have it, folks. There's the money shot. It's men talking to men, and thus making each other insecure and uninformed. Basically, we have 72 genders, 72 legitimate genders, but man is not one of them.
macho podcasters and influencers.
What does macho mean? I know I'm going to do this a lot, but what do they mean? Of course, Andrew Tate, feminism's construction, and I'll get to that in a moment. But what does macho mean in this context? What are they trying to say about this? Like, what does macho mean in this context? Does it mean actually recognizing that men have something unique to give to the world? Because that's what it seems to mean now. All right, so Andrew Tate, they always trot out Andrew Tate because Andrew Tate is the manosphere, and apparently Andrew Tate gives news on everything. That's news to me, but whatever.
There's no such thing as an independent female.
Most women
There's no such thing as an independent female. Okay. Now I understand why she did the framing she did about how men are insecure and don't know who they are. It's because that really hit home. That statement, there are no independent females. And honestly, is he wrong? Because I see this all the time. Women need to have a consensus to even believe that they exist. And I remember reading this tweet. It was not that long ago, where a woman was complaining that there were Gen Z men who said that women have no interior being. And I was like looking at this and I was thinking, yeah, but they can't know that. Only you can know if you have an inner voice, lady. So it's a completely dismissible observation. And honestly, if they don't realize that our actual knowledge, we don't know if other people are conscious. Like it's not possible to really have a firsthand experience of someone else's consciousness. So yeah, they're not going to know that. It's not possible for them to know that. Only you, lady, can know if you're conscious. So it's just like, why would you even entertain this line of argument? Why would you even be bothered by it? It's obvious trolling unless they're ignorant of the ideas and the philosophies around consciousness. And I realized that she needs them to have a positive opinion on her having a consciousness in order for her to feel like she has a consciousness. It's like women don't exist unless other people's opinions confirm their existence. And I'm like, aren't you sort of proving their point? You don't have the ability to say, yes, I observe my conscious processes, therefore I have an internal life. And nobody else can know this but me. And so this is a ridiculous line of inquiry. The fact that she's jumping to it suggests that she has to get confirmation that she has thoughts. And it's like, well, doesn't that sort of feed into what Andrew Tate said here about women not being independent? It was another tweet a while back that a conversation. And this woman was like, a man was talking about how, men do most of the work to keep society running. And this woman was like, so what, are we just your cheering squad? And he said, yeah, sure. And she said, I don't want to be limited to that. And I'm like, well, then don't limit yourself to that. Become something else. Pick up trash. Become a world famous photographer. Like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to be limited to this guy's opinion of you. And it's like, this is a real blind spot that women have. They spend so much time trying to manipulate and control other people's opinions of them that they don't attain anything. They don't realize that most attainment comes from just sitting alone with your own thoughts and being aware that you have them, right? Anyway, let's keep going.
have zero concept of like money.
Females don't have independent.
What the hell is... Okay, so is Fresh and Fit, is he part of the white supremacist manosphere?
Women have zero concept of like money.
Females don't have
I mean, even Andrew Tate's sort of vaguely brown.
independent thought.
It's a space where UFC fighters are among those who reign supreme.
Are you fucking... I shouldn't swear. Are you freaking kidding me? Eventually the Manosphere blob is going to include all sports. You know that.
They love the UFC guys. They love the MMA guys because those guys do what they can. They're modern gladiators they're badass.
How is this a problem? What's wrong with aspirational figures? It doesn't mean that these men don't understand themselves. Like,
Badass like Jake Shields, a former UFC star turned podcaster.
Sorry. Now I'm starting to feel nervous.
okay, so is this guy what the left is throwing up as an ideal of masculinity? Why would you be feeling nervous? Okay, let's find out.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course.
Who I met at an MMA gym in Las Vegas.
Like all great MMA pros.
This has to be, is this like partially satirical? It must be, because this really is setting him up as a total nebbish. That seems to be an interesting ploy there. Interesting strategy, bold strategy. So the male on the left is a nebbish who gets nervous at the sight of these guys in UFC. Now, admittedly, UFC is like, they're their own kind of creature, their own species. But, you know, they're really good at what they do. So badass is a good way of describing them. Why would he be so nervous? It's not like he's going to get involved in this unless he does, which would be interesting, actually. He does!
I've never hit anyone in my life.
I'm not punching back. Hit me. No, sit right here.
Oh my God, this is so wholesome.
This is CNN. Do you miss being full-time pro, like in terms of?
Yeah, you know, of course I miss it to go from professional.
Are they trying to make this? Brian, are you there? Are they trying to make this?
No, they're not. They think they're having a little bit of fun, but they do have an ultimate. The goal is still the same. They're just trying to appear jovial about it.
Yeah, but this is so wholesome. Like anybody who watches this guy is being very wholesome. It's like that meme with those buff bodybuilders explaining something to the little nerdy kid, you know, and in a very erudite way. This is so wholesome. He's like being very gentle with him. He's meeting this guy where he is. What the hell's wrong with that?
Athlete, which is the highest of highs, to retirement.
And I guess
the podcast has helped. You could fall into depression if you just go from the most amazing career where you're famous and spotlights to all of a sudden you're a nobody.
Sure.
Like other podcasters in the Manosphere, Jake regularly hosts controversial guests.
And I named the podcast Fighting Back. I feel like we have to fight back what we're told we're allowed to do. I just don't like to be told you're not allowed to talk to this person. Like, why can't I talk to him? I'm not saying I agree with his ideology, but I should hear what he has to say.
He's hosted the former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan.
Today I have a very, very special guest, Dr. David Duke. I know you're controversial, but I have no idea how controversial.
Wait a second.
And
So the former Grand Wizard, so he is a disavowed Nazi. So now we're not just doing Nazism by transitive property. We're doing Nazism by transitive property with somebody who overcame Nazism. What level of ridiculous coof conspiracy are we at here? All right.
Thomas Russo, the leader of the white supremacist group Patriot Front.
Let's go where we disagree a little bit.
Yes.
Wait, those are the feds, aren't they? Aren't those the Fed people? The ones in the blue polos and the tan and the khaki pants?
Let's go where we disagree a little bit.
Yes,
let's hit race, because you're a white only group?
So the organization only allows people of American ethnicity, and all Americans, I believe, come from Europe, so they're white.
Okay, that's amusing. I find that amusing. Okay, all right. That's a thing that he said, and he is wrong. But I guess the fact that this man, who seems like a very wholesome dude. I mean, look at how gentle he was with this guy who's like, I'm gonna melt into a nebbishy puddle. Like, he's so gentle. He's like, oh no, I won't hit back. We'll just have the experience. Just get into the ring and have the experience, and maybe you'll find out something about yourself from it. This is the guy who's supposed to be insecure, huh? Like that woman said. This is the guy, not the one who's like terrified of him. No, it's this guy who's insecure. And like, I have to emphasize this enough. the UFC guy whose name escapes me, he met Nebuchadnezzar guy where he was, right? He didn't push him. He didn't make fun of him. He met him where he was and then tried to introduce him to something he enjoyed. Like, that is so wholesome. All right. And then, and apparently he talks to people who are beyond the pale, because that doesn't mean like he said, it doesn't mean he agrees with them.
Of the American spirit, fight on!
Yeah, no, I understand and talk to these guys, but I've also not brought anyone hateful. If I do, I'm going to be really, really on top of them.
But so you saying that you haven't brought someone hateful on, right? People say, well, you brought on the Grand Wizard of the KKK. You brought on the Patriot Front.
Yeah.
They're hateful.
No, I think those are excellent questions, but if people go and watch the actual interviews, I think they would be like, oh, this guy's not near as hateful as if I expected.
But Vera says hate isn't what the men she dated.
Oh, man. Oh, man. He gave him a soundbite there. Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. These people are so predatory. Oh, and she's back, is she? Okay, let's find out.
We're really looking for.
One of these guys brought me to a political meeting.
And did they talk about politics?
Barely. They talked about, it was a bunch of men complaining about girlfriends and wives, regurgitating. And
okay, it was a bunch of men complaining about girlfriends and wives. So he brought you to the male version of almost every female space that I've ever come across. Like, so complaining about your spouse or your romantic partner is now verboten. Because I can tell you that there's one sex who does a lot of that. Is that hateful? Okay, I honestly, I have massive doubts that this is actually what they were doing in this space, complaining specifically about their wives and girlfriends. But even if they were complaining about their wives and girlfriends, are we going to go there? Are we going to start censuring people because they complain about their part? Of course not, because women will continue to do so. And if you want to make that comparison, there is, like, women's complaints about men are institutionalized now. I mean, there was this one woman who basically complains about her husband in terms of emotional labor on TikTok. That's how she makes a living. She's an influencer. And what she influences women to do is to be resentful towards their husbands for forcing them to do emotional labor, which, as far as I can tell, is basically telling their husbands to do stuff. So because their husbands do what they say, it's emotional labor because they have to tell their husbands what to do. That's emotional labor. All right. This is the kind of complaints I see from women towards men, and they blast them on social media. So not only are these guys apparently in a small private group complaining about their significant others, they are doing so not blasting it in the public. All right. So I'm afraid I am not that concerned. I find myself unconcerned.
Andrew Tate type of...
Right.
Yeah, but what were they quoting about Andrew Tate? Andrew Tate doesn't just constantly talk about pimping. He also talks about other things. I did actually watch some Andrew Tate. He does talk about other things like religious philosophy and social philosophy and I think some economics. So, I mean, he has opinions on other things. So what opinions were they talking about? If these men had been, let's just bracket this. So let's go to the extreme. If these men had been talking about using the lover boy method to make or to seduce women into being their, doing prostitution on OnlyFans or whatever it is on OnlyFans, doing stripping on OnlyFans. If they had been talking about that kind of stuff, she would have said it. She wouldn't have just said, oh, quoting Andrew Tate. And also, I want to remind everyone that Andrew Tate is the embodiment of the last thing that feminists gave men that was positive. And that's basically pleasuring women with their penises. Did I just get this demonetized? Who cares? So they left only one passingly pro-social element to manhood in the inventory of masculine norms, and that was Playboy. So a man giving a woman sexual pleasure, a man being able to seduce a woman, that kind of thing. That was the last thing that feminists gave men that was in any way pro-social. They took away breadwinner, they took away protector, they took away other forms of masculinity that involve self-sacrifice. They refused to see that as part of the masculine norms, or even part, oh, God forbid, part of masculine nature. They refused to see that, and they left one little dribble. And from that little dribble burst forth Andrew Tate.
Advice about how to train your girlfriend, how to train your wife to be submissive. And so this group was supposed to be a political group, but they're talking about relationship problems. And
how to train your wife to be submissive. Okay, I've seen those conversations. I have my own problems with them, not related to women ending up being submissive, more related to the fact that these conversations only seem to ever put the responsibility for women's behavior on men. So in other words, if she's batshit insane and kills your hamster, it was on you because you just didn't lead her enough. Right? She boils your bunny. It's on you. It's you. You just didn't, mash X, Y in the proper sequence to unlock the gentle homemaker setting. Right? It just puts things on men, and that really frustrates me. I don't like it. Because as you all know, if you've watched me for any length of time, I blame women and nobody can stop me. So that's my problem with it. But I presume from the conversations that I'm seeing that the way that they say to make a woman submissive, and again, if they said beat her every Tuesday, this woman would have been all over that like white on rice. And that would have been the first thing out of her mouth. So what they likely say, based on my experience of those conversations, is that a man needs to lead properly, and then his woman will follow, which again puts it on him, but which, I don't think the Bible really puts it on men like that, because it uses the word submit, which is different than obey. Submit has actually a military connotation in like the word history. So you have a power that you willingly grant or give to the service of another person. So there's a recognition that women have the power not to submit. They have the power to make life a goddamn holy hell for everyone. But these women choose to submit. They choose to trust the men in their lives with the things that men do, like protection and creating systems to facilitate protection, like creating a system, a watch to facilitate protection, creating weapons, that kind of thing. Just trust the men. They know they know their business. Okay.
And the fact that that's what most of the time was spent on, you don't need to be a neo-Nazi. You need therapy.
Where are the Nazis in Boston, CNN? Where are they?
The appeal of
Oh, I love the little freaking shitty grin she does.
A neo-Nazi. You need therapy.
That's the face of trust right there. Look at that. Is that not a smile that you trust? Oh, good Lord. Oh, man, oh man. Okay, so we're just shoving Nazism in there. I guess the pathway, I'm going to reconstruct the pathway that we got to Nazism. This individual whose name escapes me, I am so sorry. Jake Shields. Jake Shields decides to speak to people, probably to get their perspective, maybe to understand it in order to be able to avoid whatever pitfalls it represents, whatever. He's obviously a free speech advocate. So he talks to these people. Some of them happen to be a former grand wizard for the KKK. One was part of Patriot Front. And he talks to these people. And because he says, well, they weren't that hateful, which I don't know what his definition of hateful is. I guess maybe they come out of somebody opens a cage and they go directly for his eyes. But if he says the word that hateful, and maybe it's because he wants to humanize this so people understand how they end up in that circumstance of that level of hatred. I'd have to look more into Patriot Front to decide, because I don't want to go on whatever CNN says about them. But regardless, he's willing to talk to these people. And because he's willing to talk to them, and because he's not willing to blanket throw them under the bus as subhuman, hateful orcs, obviously the Manosphere is about neo-Nazis. And also needs therapy.
The appeal of Jake's podcast speaks to a need among young men in this country that Vera says can't be ignored.
You have to incentivize someone to want to be better.
Vera, who decides what better is? I'm guessing that's you, right? You get to decide what better is. You have to incentivize people to be better, huh? But you get to decide what better is. When were you declared, when were you crowned grand universal queen of what is better? Right? What are your qualifications? What are your credentials? Because you work at CNN? Well, of course.
Can't just say, let's make men better.
So what is the incentive structure you're going to offer to make men better?
The thing about these guys is their biggest support system is online, but that also is very isolating, and isolation is what breeds hate.
It's the Confederacy of Midwits.
Groups like Patriot
Oh,
Front
these
offer
guys.
a community based on racism and hate.
People have to really think about, do you have...
Seriously. How and do you have
the capacity to talk to people that you don't agree with? Because...
Well, Jake Shields has the capacity to talk to people that he doesn't agree with, but apparently you don't, not without casting aspersions and deciding you're their moral betters.
That one nice conversation you might have might change someone's day.
Okay, that would be Jack Shields' philosophy. Why are you copying it?
Enough to not have to seek out help in an online support group, which is actually a bunch of white supremacists using political beliefs.
A bunch of white supremacists. Let's go back here. Let's go back. Right here. Yes, a bunch of white supremacists. And I guess the solution is to actually treat men as human beings, but that should make them better. Well, in a very roundabout way, she sort of hit on the correct answer. But then the question is, why aren't we already treating men as human beings? And doesn't that make us a lot less than better if we're not?
Talking about relationship problems. And the fact that that's what most of the time was spent on, you don't need to be a neo-Nazi. You need therapy.
You gave absolutely no evidence that these men were neo-Nazis. What did you do? Did you crash like a group therapy section? Just like... so these guys are just talking about their relationship problems, and suddenly this woman is like, you're a neo-Nazi. How does that follow? Because the only other thing she said these men were explicitly saying, and I want you to realize this, we segued into this nonsense about Jack Shield talking to Patriot Front, Jack Shield talking to the Grand Poobah of the KKK or whatever it was, the former one. And now we're at, oh yeah, obviously these men are Nazis. No, that there's no logic here. There's only insinuation and poisoning the well. So she has not proven that this parent support group for men who have relationship difficulties had a whole bunch of Nazis in it. She hasn't proven that. This remains unproven.
The appeal of Jake's podcast speaks to a need among young men in this country that Vera says can't be ignored.
You have to incentivize someone.
Yeah, what a surprise after you lost an election.
To want to be better. You can't just say,
Oh,
let's
we already
make
did
men
that.
better.
Yeah.
The thing about these guys is their biggest support system is online, but that also is very isolating, and isolation is what breeds hatred.
So how do they end up having their biggest support system be online? How does that happen?
Groups like Patriot Front offer community, but community based on racism.
I don't know
and
anybody
hate.
who is in Patriot Front. And I don't think the Manosphere really unites people based on racism. That's not the central theme of the Manosphere. But you know, this is an interesting illustration of things that I've talked about, how women appropriate other forms of ism in order to buttress their claims of discrimination. Like so far, I mean, maybe she's leaving it for the end. Maybe that's going to be the M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end. So far, we haven't really discussed it in terms of misogyny. It's all been racism. We really haven't discussed it much in terms of misogyny.
Have to really think about, do you have the capacity to talk to people that you don't agree with? Because that one nice conversation you might have might change someone's day enough to not have to seek out help in an online support group, which is actually a bunch of white supremacists.
Unproven.
Using political beliefs as an excuse for how they feel.
Using political beliefs for an excuse for how they feel. Right? And again, this is apparently all about this group therapy, this therapy group, right? Of a bunch of men talking about their relationships, which you would think would be just fine. Like if they have relationship problems, they're talking about it with each other, they're supporting each other. She hasn't given any detail into the horrible things that were said, not a single quote, just that they were talking about their relationship problems and occasionally spoke about Andrew Tate. And I think at one point she said, oh, they were teaching each other about how to get their woman to follow their lead. Well, I mean, if you don't want women to have to follow men's leads, then stop giving men responsibility for women's behavior. Just take it, as a woman, take responsibility for your own behavior. Otherwise, if these men live in a world where they're going to be held responsible for their women's behavior, they might as well discuss how to lead them so that they don't get hit with the shit stick because she does something stupid.
Donnie O'Sullivan is here with us now. Donnie, I'm so glad you've done this special. There's so much intrigue around this issue of the Manosphere.
The Manosphere is intriguing. Well, that's an improvement, I guess.
And in fact, Trump is going to the UFC tonight. How big of a role does the sport play in the Manosphere?
Are you okay? Actually, you know what? I'm going to stop here. I'm going to look and see what you guys are saying because I'm curious. I'm curious what you have to think. I'll go into this. I'll go into the vertical chat or the horizontal chat first and see what the stream is saying. Oh, I got a super chat. That's cool. Thank you, Mark Hillier. Allison, these podcasts say Jews are the problem. I don't know what podcast you're referring to. You're saying that all the Manosphere says that? I have listened to some, and like Joe Rogan, I'm pretty sure he doesn't say that. Like apparently, this Jack Shield, no indication that he believes that this is true. Right? Okay. Also, considering that Trump is going after Harvard for anti-Semitism, does the left really have a leg to stand on here? I mean, she isn't specifically saying anti-Semitism. She's saying racism, right? She hasn't said anti-Semitism. And there's probably a reason why she hasn't said anti-Semitism, because the left is being called out for being anti-Semitic now. Right? I'm just saying. Okay, Jim Bottle says, don't blame Allison, hold responsible rather. No, blame. I'm sorry. The thing is that once you start playing the game, the feelings game, oh, I don't like that, it just keeps creeping. It just keeps creeping. So women have to deal with the word blame. They have to deal with the fact that they are to blame, right? And they should be blamed until we are as comfortable blaming women as we are blaming men. Okay, let's all right, so Tealder mentions, never forget that Playboy metric on that feminist inventory was only used by 3% of the men they sampled. 3% became a norm because of feminism. Yes, here's the thing, guys. So we started out with masculine norms, and masculine norms was being a provider, it was being a protector, it was being a father, it was being a good friend, it was upholding your word, it was always being there, so being stable and supportive. All of these kinds of ideas were once associated with men and expectations of men on the masculine norms. Over from the 1970s up to like the early 2000s, all of that disappeared. Every single pro-social recognition of a pro-social expectation of men, and I would argue that this is a pro-social expectation of men that is based on the way men are naturally. So the way men do. The masculine frame, the biological masculine frame. So what you inherit as a man from your biology. These masculine norms and the recognition of these good things that men bring society, all of them were removed because, well, women could do it too. They aren't really expected to do it the way men are expected to do it, nor is there evidence that they have the same kind of genetic predisposition to doing it. Things like altruistic punishment, which is self-sacrifice in order to uphold the norms of society. There's not evidence that women do this like men do. I mean, look at the situation of the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system evolved out of men coming together and policing each other's behavior in order to create a functional society. Look at what's happening with feminists now, female advocates. They are dismantling the criminal justice system as it applies to criminal women. And they've been doing this for decades now. They're dismantling it. So men created a system of holding other men accountable. Women are dismantling that system and refusing to hold each other accountable. We wouldn't have a justice system if it was left up to women, right? Okay, so the masculine norms were an expression, in my opinion, of masculine nature that were recognized as norms. But they were also expectations of men, in part because I think in the past we believed that more men were more capable of demonstrating these social positives, but also because we expected them of it. All of that was removed, all of it. And the only thing that was left was men's ability to seduce women and give them sexual pleasure. That's it. That's the only thing they left, is something completely tied to men's genitals. Feminists talk about objectification. They literally removed everything from the male identity except being a fuckboy. Right? And now we have Andrew Tate. Ugh, okay. All right, let's see if there's anything else. I don't see any. I'll still check and see if there's any super chows in the. Nope. If you'd like to send me a super chow, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very much appreciated if you do so. And I'll take a look. Okay, I'll don my personal protective gear and go into the special chat. So I'm going into the special chat. So Scarlett O'Hara said no Republican man dated that. Yeah, I have my doubts. I have my doubts as well. Also, based on her evidence, all she's basically said is that she went to a group support for men in troubled relationships, I guess. Maybe this guy was like, I think you could use seeing the other side of a relationship in which the woman is abusive, hint, hint, nudge, nudge to this lady. You might want to, you need a little bit of consciousness or sympathy raising to this this CNN lady. Oh goodness, let me see. No, it's open. All right. Okay, so I think that might have been what happened. And if guys are confused what I'm saying that some man in her life that she met that may have had passingly far right or right opinions, maybe he felt like unchecked immigration into a state that offers programs programs for its citizens is a recipe for economic collapse. And she was like, oh my God, you're a Nazi. And then he was like, he listened to her for a bit and he said, do you have a man in your life? Because I think you could, do you want to know about even more Nazism? I'll take you to this support group for men who are abused by women. And maybe you can hear some juicy stories and become enlightened about your own behavior. Okay. I don't know. Oh, it's a thought. All right. So, okay, let's see what else is in the super chat. Oh, Gabe L says, incentive structure to become a better person. Do you hear the things you say? I wonder if these men came together and discussed an incentive structure to make better women, what she would think of that. Like it is incredibly arrogant how they presume that they know what makes men better. And of course, they also know what makes women better too. All right, let's see what else. Anthony Huber, permanently retired skateboarder, far right. Translation: anyone to the right of Stalin. No, I'm sorry, my dears. Stalin is also far right now. It's anyone that there was this this is a sort of this, I think it was in South America. They had this kind of comedy act, except it's more like it's like comedy custom, where you'd have one person get up on stage, and usually it's men, will get up on stage, and there'd be two people up on stage, and each of them would do everything they could to make the other look ridiculous. So one would be just laughing and laughing and pointing and laughing and making gestures. And they both do this to try to make the other one look ridiculous. And that's what this is. She is trying to pantomime the idea that these individuals are biased and to try to induce the perception through, I don't know, to induce the perception by just pantomiming it. That's what this all is. They're just pantomiming. Oh, I'm responding to this like he's a Nazi, therefore he's a Nazi. Okay, let me move on here. See what else they have. Wait, I'll just check the super chats. Nope, nothing yet. Gotta look at what. Oh, there's a super chat. Okay, I got the super chat. Brian just sent me a message, or maybe he sent me a message when I got the super chat. I don't know. Anyway, information was conveyed. Let's move on. Oh, I did get a super chat. All right. So Big JXXX, $20. Thank you, Big JXXX. My memory is very long. Karen, girl writes what? Interviewed and gave sympathy and empathy towards white nationalist Christopher Cantwell. The Manosphere is a link to fascism. Enough with the SBE, shame, blame, and explain. Is linked to fascism? All right. Are you calling that? Well, first of all, this is transitive property. That doesn't mean she necessarily agreed with anything that Christopher Cantwell said. Plus, Christopher Cantwell, from my memory, was a pretty marginal dude. A lot of these guys that are marginal like this, they believe a whole bunch of stuff that's often self-contradictory. Like they just want a cause to replace their sense of self-worth. I don't disagree with her on that, but I just don't think that a bunch of men talking about their relationship difficulties is Nazism, nor do I think that this Jack Shield is a Nazi because he interviewed a former Grand Wizard or the head of Patriot Front. Yeah. So Gabriel Phelan Lucas says, you just paid someone you disagreed with, self-own. Yeah, well, I'll take it. There you go. That's my explanation. Okay. All right, so let's listen to a bit more.
Hey, Isabel. Yeah, and look, we should point out at the start here, there's tons of guys who are fans, and some women as well, who are fans of the UFC. I have many friends who are fans of the UFC. It certainly does not mean, you know, that if you are a fan of the UFC, you are falling sort of down this rabbit hole of hate and white supremacy and everything else. But what we are seeing is that there is this sort of, there is this crossover. The UFC...
What I was getting at with the pantomime thing, somebody said anyone to the right of Stalin. Actually, what it is anyone you can pantomime being to the right of yourself at any moment. So it's ultimately it deteriorates into people, a group of people or two people, both of whom are trying to shame, blame, and explain the other. All right, let's finish this off. I think you just waffled for a bit there.
UFC is playing a greater and bigger role really in American life. Joe Rogan, who's the world's biggest podcaster, is a UFC commentator.
Okay, guys, their next target is the UFC. They did games, they did atheism, they did football, and now they did the guy who sent who landed a rocket on a meteorite, and now they're going to do the UFC because that's the source of the manosphere, my dudes. Okay.
Dana White, who is the founder of the UFC, is a prominent Trump supporter and was recently appointed to the board of Meta by Mark Zuckerberg himself, another big MMA and UFC fan. And actually fighting tonight in Miami, Trump is going to the...
This is a M. Night Shyamalan twist. I at the beginning this, I would never have guessed that UFC is the new big bad. UFC is the new hotness that they need to infiltrate and destroy. Look forward to all the men's matches being replaced by women, and if you're lucky, trans women.
Event. We're not sure if he'll be there for the earlier fights, but fighting tonight in Miami at the UFC event is a fighter by the name of Bryce Mitchell, who recently set up a podcast of his own, and on his debut episode a few months ago, he said that Hitler was a quote-unquote good guy or a great guy.
I would need to know the context of that.
Dana White, the head of the UFC, was quick to condemn that, but you know, you can just kind of see there.
So somebody who I'm guessing retired from the NFC said that Hitler was a good guy. No context. Could be sarcasm. Of course, I know that they don't accept context. Man, this woman looks like she's not there at all. Like the woman on the, do you see the woman on my left? I think it might be your right, or maybe no, wait, your left. She looks like she's checked out long ago. She's either got a vibrating egg stuffed up somewhere, or she's imagining Acapulco or something. She's like, I'm not here. I'm far away.
Where folks who might be coming into this sport for one reason are fan of fighting, and then they're getting exposed to views like Bryce Mitchell's.
But wow, that was a stretch. This one guy in UFC is pretty big. Like, I mean, if you include all of them, including the amateur, it's huge. There must be like at least tens of thousands of guys who compete in UFC in the relevant sports, right? Like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and all that stuff. I went to one once. It was a very strange experience. Not my cup of tea, let me tell you. because I used to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and my instructor had a fighter who was doing a part of the local mixed martial arts fighting, and I went to support. And I don't know, it's just not my scene. I like Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but I don't particularly like UFC fighting. I know that sounds weird, but no, maybe it doesn't. Maybe people understand. But anyway, it was a weird scene. However, there's a lot of it. Like, I would imagine there is a lot of people involved in this, lots of fans, lots of participants. And one guy says, out of context, because I don't know what the context was for him saying that, Hitler was a good guy. This guy, the guy who's the head, says, I don't agree with that. That's wrong. And somehow, yeah, I don't want to show you guys an ad. Somehow this means that the UFC is Nazis now. Like I said, I'm guessing the new hotness is going after the UFC, and pretty soon you're going to be finding a whole bunch of changes because it's masculine and also Nazis. You see how they operate? They find some space that even passingly, like men are even passingly interested in, or there's a majority male audience. Not all men like the UFC, but it's a majority male audience. So that's the next thing on the chopping block. Just like we did a show a couple like last week on trash collection, last Friday, trash collection in Birmingham in the UK, and how the trash collectors are going on strike because they have been subject to pay cuts because of equality efforts that were bringing their pay in line with female dominated professions, carers, and indoor cleaners. So men who were picking up garbage went on strike because they were seeing pay cuts to bring their pay in line with cleaners and cooks, which was majority female. And the justification was, of course, then men were majority men and cleaners and cooks were majority female. So if there's any discrepancy between the pay for bin men and pay for cleaners and cooks, it must be due to patriarchal privilege. This has to be corrected. So now the streets of Birmingham are awash in garbage because of this nonsense. And this is the same rationale to go over at the UFC. They're constructing a threat narrative. Guys, don't know about threat narratives, look up threat narrative on my personal channel. I think it might be Gender Addict is my personal channel, and take a look at that. Essentially, a threat narrative is when they just whole cloth build this idea, they construct this ill intent of the UFC. They construct the malfeasance of the UFC, so they're up to no good. They're mysterious. The UFC is mysterious now, guys. A mysterious cabal. One of them said that he thought Hitler was a cool dude. And also we're just going to pantomime some Nazism. We're going to pantomime that the guy on the other side of the theater, the stage, he's a Nazi. We're going to pantomime that. And now we're going to go after them. And we're going to shut it all down because men like it. That's it. That's the only reason. Okay, I'm done with this. I did not realize that we would end up with the end conclusion of this would be the UFC is full of Nazis. We have to shut it down. That was new. That actually was slightly surprising. But anyway, okay. So, Brian, are you there? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Did you want to add anything, or did you know that it was the end of this? The final conclusion was that we have to shut down the UFC, or we have to massively change it or overhaul it.
I mean, is my sound okay? Because some people were saying that it was low.
Sounds like
So, I don't know. Oh yeah, it is.
Maybe.
It is a bit low. I am low.
Okay, I'll increase the sound.
No, it's all right. I can turn myself up, I think.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
I don't know why my volume is low. Let me just hold on a second. I will adjust it and turn myself up a little bit. Okay.
We get to hear your opinion. I've been waiting.
I'm still low for some reason. Yeah. Let me just see if I can just add some gain. There we go. So,
all right.
Here we go. All right. So, all right. Okay. So, the only thing I guess I would say is It doesn't surprise me because it's something that men largely enjoy. And what they're really attacking is masculinity in whatever form it takes. The other thing is, you know, like that about that super chat where Karen had on Chris Cantwell. I mean, obviously, like we can talk to whoever we want. And I don't know if you've been paying attention, but like if somebody says you shouldn't speak to this person, or I think you're a bad person because you spoke to so-and-so and you didn't just like essentially drag them over the coals for being a quote bad person, end quote, you're just trying to control who people talk to and ultimately what people think about. And I find that absolutely reprehensible, more so than whatever views this person has. And so like the thing is, the cat is out of the bag. People are having conversations. They're doing it without the oversight of media or politicians or activists or academics or intellectuals. It's happening everywhere. You can't stop it. So you might as well be a part of the conversation and have like the better ideas and just let's talk to people. You know who like supposedly, I don't know if it's true, but there was a guy named Daryl Davis. Daryl Davis is a black man that supposedly de-radicalized several members of the Ku Klux Klan. And you know how he did it? He sat down and talked to them. He hung out with them. Now, I would ask him how he survived, considering how bloodthirsty and murderous we're told these people are. But he did survive. He de-radicalized them by hanging out with them and talking to them and seeing them as human beings. So the reason why I'm saying this is because if you let the media tell you that if you have any connection to whoever we are arbitrarily decide is part of the Manosphere, then you are going to be deplatformed. And that's why I think that coming out and saying, well, I don't associate with those people because those are bad people. You are playing by their rules. You're playing by the rules of these feminists and activists. Okay. That is for sure going to kill you. It's going to kill your movement is what I mean. Not literally kill you. So like, what you have to do is you have
Answer
to be
for
able
yourself.
to say, answer just for yourself. Have conversations with people if you know, and just be open. So like, you don't like that so-and-so has opinions on this group of people or that group of people. Well, maybe you should like talk to that person and find out where they get their ideas. Because as long as you play the game of don't associate with X, you're going to keep losing because people are just going to keep asking themselves, well, why can't I talk to that person? Why can't I have this conversation? Why can't I find out what they believe? Like, why can't I sit down with David Duke and have a conversation? The Hodge twins, you know who the Hodge twins are? They're a couple of black guy bodybuilders. They did a podcast and interviewed David Duke. They walked out of there in one piece. How was that possible? How did that happen? Like, what? You should be asking yourself this question. Like, how, like, why are you, like, why do you believe what the media told you? Why is it there are still people to this day that are like, well, CNN said, and it's like, what? Guys, think for yourselves. How is it possible that happened and nobody died? And the other thing is that the reason, so the thing is I don't think Jake Shields is Manosphere anyway. I think that's a very loose connection. Because
that's what I was thinking.
What the media is doing, I don't watch Jake Shields, so I don't know for sure, but I doubt that he's Manosphere. What the media does, and this is exactly what they did in this video, okay? They start off with people who are genuinely, I would even say, yeah, sure, these people are in the Manosphere, like Fresh and Fit Andrew Tate, right? That are sort of like loosely connected. They're not talking to any MRAs, by the way. They're not talking to Warren Farrell. They're not talking to Paul Elam. They're not talking to Janice Fiamengo. They're not talking to Tim Goldich or Tom Golden. They're not talking to any of those people. They're talking about the people that are the worst possible, or at least in their minds, the worst possible representatives. And then they try to create connective tissue between the worst possible examples that they were able to find, i.e. Fresh and Fit, whatever, Andrew Tate. And then they say, oh, well, these people are like Jake Shields, and Jake Shields spoke to David Duke, and David Duke is just like Patriot Front. Oh, did you see what we did there? And it's basically like this, let's connect the dots, and now we're gonna and then we're not even gonna make any absolute claims. We're just gonna let it rest and let you decide. What do you think? And of course, fucking boomers and women that are watching this are like, oh my God, the Manosphere is full of white supremacists. Even though they just saw, the guy from Fresh and Fit who's clearly not white, right? But, it doesn't matter. This whole thing is lies. And as long as you try to play that damage control bullshit, you're going to lose because these people don't care about the truth. They don't. They never cared about the truth.
They want to pantomime that you're a Nazi, and that's it.
Yeah.
Just shut you up.
And the truth is that works as long as you think of, I don't know, I guess being a Nazi as the worst possible thing you could be. That, as long as it's something that is so beyond the pale inhuman that you can't possibly have a rational conversation with somebody who's been accused of being a Nazi. That is the way that they control you. This is why I'm like, well, Jake Shields talked with David Duke. Okay. Well, what did he have to say? I don't know. It's crazy. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
They did this with Alex Jones. How did they get Alex Jones banned from YouTube? They make the same claims, and then they do over time, they get rid of him. The system gets rid of him. The system, the cathedral's the problem, not these independent voices. So I don't know.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. Sorry.
Yeah. I think that next time we need to have it so that you can come on so they can see who's saying that.
I don't know. I like being a disembodied voice. By the way, you closed the website for some reason.
Yeah, I did because it was showing an ad. I'm like, I'm not giving you freaking advertising. I can reopen it if you want. Yeah, it was just showing an ad. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna give you guys free advertising, especially since my channel is our channels are demonetized. But I can bring it up again. It'll show another ad, right? Wait. Okay, here we go. I'll just share. Here we go. There you go. You get to see it again. This individual, this woman who looks like she's completely checked out, utterly checked out. Anyway, get to see her mug again. Okay, so let me just double check to make sure it's up. I'll put it on another. This is our right-wing honey trap there. Whew. Okay,
I think that if you pay attention, she was actually sexually attracted to these UFC guys.
Yeah, no doubt.
She said they were badasses, and the way that she said it was very breathy. So it was,
Actually, there's a trick. Let's listen. We could go back and listen to how she speaks about these men.
To anything else. They're only listening to independent media, and they're only listening to men talking to men.
The Manosphere is...
So generally when women are attracted to a man, their voice goes up. It's a little difficult. Becomes higher pitched. It's a little difficult to discern with her because she seems to use a lot of vocal fry. But if we listen to her actually describing these guys.
And then they go online and they are a white supremacist.
But
friends, and then they go online.
So let's see.
Popular.
They speak liberal, they have liberal friends, and then they go online and they are a white supremacist.
She might also be lying when she does the vocal fry. It's going to be difficult to discern, but yeah, it's possible that she did find them attractive. And then this is all bullshit. She's negging them.
It's not that line. It's when no, it's not that part. It's when she talks about when they get into the UFC thing. It's when she describes the UFC guys.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm probably it's going to be quite difficult to find it. Do you know the actual time code?
I don't know the time code. It's okay.
Yeah, that's good. But I'll trust you. I'll try. I wouldn't be surprised if she actually finds them attractive because women are attracted to masculinity, even though they want to destroy it at the same time. It's very bizarre. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna say thank you for your kind attention, everyone. If you would like to send me a message at any time after the show, even if you want to just send us a message and because you apparently think we're awful, like that one person who sent us $20. You didn't have to send us $20 to tell us that, by the way, Big JXX. You could just have sent $5, all right, $2, all right, if that is negative. But thank you. good on you to not just listen to opposing views, but support them. So, and if you want to do that, you can do that at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Send us a message and a tip. You can tell me how awful I am. And if you just want to support the show because you really like us, or even if you don't like us, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/support. I don't judge. No, you can hate support us. We'll still appreciate it. So anyway, those are the ways you can support us. I guess it's up to me to say like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and share it because sharing is caring. And please comment. Tell us what you think. All right, I'm gonna take off here. See ya.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.